Alright everyone, time for an extra special video here. We've got some semi-breaking news, which is that David Chipman, you know, the Waco wacko who is being considered for the head of the ATF, there is no head of the ATF at the moment and hasn't been for quite some time. He's been put out. That is, the Biden administration, partially I think because of Joe Manchin, possibly Sinema and a few others, has decided to withdraw their nomination of David Chipman as the head of the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Now, what I would suggest as a libertarian is the ATF shouldn't exist. People drink, you know, the alcohol companies follow their protocols. For the most part, people don't get alcohol poisoning in the sense of getting like methyl alcohol. As far as tobacco, you can literally grow it in your own backyard, so it's largely unenforceable. The only thing is that the down and out in inner city areas occasionally, like I think it was Garner, get killed for selling some rollies. Other than that, nobody really cares. You know, there are some smokers. Most people don't smoke now because they realize it's bad for them. And then you have firearms, which are constitutionally protected. Now, David Chipman was an extreme anti-constitutional individual, an extremist, if you will. And this is probably the reason why his nomination has been withdrawn by the Biden administration. Specifically, not because of his views on alcohol. I'm sure he, probably enjoys a beer now and then, or tobacco. Maybe he smokes, maybe he doesn't. Who cares? But firearms specifically, the ATF oversees those. The thing is that David Chipman is an extreme anti-Second Amendment individual. He does not seem to understand even the basic premise of the right to keep and bear arms. Probably thinks that it means the right to keep and bear literally your arms, like physically. And people like that don't need to be heading such bureaus. Now, Biden was forced into a corner on this by pro-gun groups, number one, members of Congress, number two, by pretty much every bit of commentary, number three, being completely against Chipman, because why should you have someone heading the ATF who's tasked with firearm laws and things of that nature, actually enforcing them, who doesn't even understand the Second Amendment? And that's really the truth. He does not understand the Second Amendment. So he's been withdrawn. That's very, very good news. And now we can call him, instead of just back Turner Biden, we can call him back down Biden, because of course him and the cronies that he surrounded himself with, they put him forth. They were very glowing in their praise. Oh, Chipman will be great as the head of the ATF. He's very, very qualified. See, the problem is he was one of the people present at the Waco massacre, number one, which, by the way, led directly to the Timmy McVeigh issue, which didn't even involve guns. It involved fertilizer and basic knowledge of chemistry. The ATF is bullshit, but Chipman is even more bullshit. If you're going to have an ATF at all, you should have a head of the ATF that actually understands the Constitution. Now, of course, if they truly understood it, then they would basically resign from their position and say, well, I'm tasked with enforcing laws that are technically legally unenforceable because they run up against the Second Amendment. To be clear, I don't think the NFA should be allowed. I don't think there should be any regulations on people smoking in various areas. The funny thing is, again, outside perspective, here in the Netherlands, there are like ashtrays in all of the alfresco restaurant settings, and people smoke tobacco, at least in the outdoor setting, I don't know about indoors, at a whim. Yet fewer people, I think, smoke, other than the youth. There's a lot of social smoking, which isn't great, and are much healthier than people in the United States. And so I'm thinking that the United States has gone down the path of stupidity. Much like with drinking laws, here an 18-year-old can get a beer. In the United States, they can't, and yet the level of drunkenness in the Netherlands, I believe, is considerably lower. The United States, by heaping law upon law upon law, whether it be for alcohol, tobacco, firearms, or literally anything else under the sun, has actually fucked things up, has made them worse. Once again, by the way, corroborating my all-eternal belief that more government is not your friend, more bureaucracy actually harms, it doesn't help. And Chipman, what he would have represented, had he been actually confirmed, and he won't be because he's been withdrawn, what Chipman would have represented is the hardline, extreme anti-gun notion that the average American is less to be trusted than a member of the goddamn Taliban. That's what it boils down to. The U.S. government regularly gives guns. By the way, he was part of Fast and Furious, literally giving machine guns to cartels in Mexico, specifically Sinaloa. So you would have had a head of the ATF who has no problem with giving literal military weapons, not just like, oh, it's military style like the AR-15. It kind of looks like an assault rifle, and so, fuck the select fire shit. It's basically the same as what we used in Vietnam. No problem with giving actual military weapons to drug cartels. No problem with giving literal military weapons, logistics, aid of every kind to like the FSA, a bunch of Islamo-fascists in Syria, giving it maybe even to the Taliban, groups like that, but has a real big problem, just like Joe Biden does with the idea that someone should have more than 10 shots in the locker with their sporting rifle in the United States. I am questioning whether we can legitimately claim that any incarnation of the U.S. government that thinks that that's an actual legitimate policy can be legitimized in and of itself. That is, that if the idea is that religious fanatics in the third world, in the undeveloped world, that don't believe in any semblance of human rights, or people in the developing world, like parts of Mexico again, that are dealing drugs, often run by the CIA through Miami, but we'll get past that, running drugs north and south of the border, that those groups can be trusted with machine guns and actual assault rifles and rockets and missiles and everything else under the sun. If they don't believe that the American citizen is responsible enough to be able to carry a pistol that carries more than 10 bullets, I would question the competency of that government. Now, in the sense of Joe Biden believing this, because he thinks you should defend your home with a shotgun instead, which is generally not great advice. If he has those beliefs, well, I mean, he's demented, number one, not really calling the shots, number two, and number three, at the executive level, can't really do a lot about the Second Amendment. The courts would strike it down. If you, though, have the ATF incepted by the legislature, that's an order of magnitude more separate from SCOTUS decisions in general because they're very reluctant to take them up. If you have an ATF head who believes the same goddamn thing, that's much more worrisome. This is a stain, as far as I'm concerned, on the Biden administration, which is already, it's plummeting in support for a reason. Independents, I think it's like, what is it in polling now? 65% of independents don't approve of what's going on currently. Like, they woke up, they realized, well, no more mean tweets, but oh shit. It costs so much more when I'm at the pump. It costs so much more when I'm trying to get lumber at Home Depot. Everything's fucked up. What the fuck? I think, by the way, there will be a lot of bumper stickers that said, I voted for Biden. Sorry, I sobered up. If the head of the ATF has those views, that's more worrisome. The mere fact, though, that he was even put forward to begin with should be ridiculed flatly by every American. The very concept that you would have a head of the ATF, again, involved in part with firearms controls, that fairly openly and expressly believes the Second Amendment is horseshit, doesn't believe that the average American can be trusted with a fucking BB gun, the very fact that this person was even considered is a blot on the so-called presidency that we currently have to deal with, the asterisk administration as I call it. The fact that he's been withdrawn is definitely good. This is a positive thing. I'll be very, very interested to see what loser is put forth next. I don't think the position, though, should be filled at all. I think the ATF altogether should simply be abolished. It doesn't do anything of meaning except raid somebody because they grew too many tobacco plants. Maybe they're trying to sell it. They had a still in their garage. Who cares? I don't care if they make poisoned beer and all of their friends die. It doesn't bother me. It just, as long as there's a consumer choice, there always will be in such an economy, there's no reason to regulate these things. As far as firearms, yes, Americans should be able to own machine guns. Yeah, I trust the average American more. I know that the Democrats would like us to believe the average American is a violent psycho, but I would trust them more than a cartel member or a terrorist over in the third world in the Middle East or in Central Asia with a machine gun. Yeah, if my next door neighbor decides to buy an actual assault rifle, one that they can't get currently, I'm not afraid of that. That's okay. I don't care if they have rifle armor. I don't care if they buy a tank, which is still, by the way, legal as long as its main gun is decommissioned. That's perfectly fine. I'm much more interested in learning why David Chipman, who was part of Fast and Furious and the Waco massacre, was even considered for the fucking position. We won't get answers on this, though. This will be quietly shooed aside, and then somebody else will be put forward that's a little bit less anti-gun. So instead of Chipman saying, well, why does an American need a BB gun that can hold 30 BBs? That seems excessive. It'll be someone who says, oh, BB guns are fine. That's okay. But 22 cal? Oh my God, that could kill somebody. The average American can't be trusted to handle a 22 caliber revolver. And that's probably what we'll get from the Beijing Biden admin. If I were in the Senate, I would just preemptively state I won't vote for any of his nominees for the position. Keep it unfilled. Abolish the ATF entirely. That's about all. Peace out.